Good
Hi,
morning,
Haley.
Brian.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so love our chats, and I so
I
look forward to them. It's like nine. It's 9 o'clock my time, 11 o'clock your time, and I'm always just like, "Is it time? Is it time?"
yeah, I love it too. It's a respite for me and
Yeah,
a well of water, a balm. Uh,
lovely.
I got a challenging question for you today. We can go anywhere we want, but I'm writing my memoir, as I think you know, and one major character in my life uh, was a priest who later was found guilty. He was charged, found guilty of pedophilia, and he was sent to prison. Um, Ray and I uh, didn't really believe those charges, and even if we did, we would not have ended a friendship or seen him in prison. I think we're called to do that. Uh, and I've been cautioned about including him in my memoir, that that his name is a hot button for people. And I'm not going to take him out. It's ridiculous because he's too much a part of both rays in my life. But the question, Haley, becomes: uh, is there a point in which you stop loving someone, um, or that you don't mention them in polite company, or uh, you don't acknowledge their ongoing importance to you?
I'm going to answer that from a very personal perspective because I think this is you and I talking. We're not talking on behalf of everybody else. For me, the first word that stands out that you said was love. And I want to be the kind of person that believes and behaves in an unconditional, loving manner. So, regardless of what the person does or how they're presenting, I still choose to see the light. I still choose to see that there's not a whole lot separating us apart from perhaps life experience and choices. You still deserve love. Does that mean I want to interact with that person? It really depends on my experience with that person and if they've respected my boundaries versus other people's boundaries. So the people that I have nothing to do with violated my boundaries. For other people would be shocked. They're like, how could you do that? They're really sweet
Mhm.
people. It's the same side of it, you know. I think we're all here to have an individual experience as part of the collective. We all have very unique perspectives, but ultimately, I think the human purpose is to move into unconditional love and having the courage to be in the truth.
I wrote, um, and I'm testing it out, but Ray and I have forgiven uh, every person in our lives who have hurt us intentionally or unintentionally. We don't carry the baggage uh, of, and people say, how can you have a friendship with these people who took all your money, you know, who swindled you and didn't give you, because I, I still love them. And would I give them more money? No. Uh, but I don't stop loving people. We've had a lot of close friends in our lives, usually another couple who we spent tons of time with. And then for some reason, there'd be a falling out. I'd never really understand why there was a falling out. Uh, Sometimes I blame myself for being too intense, wanting to talk too deeply about feelings. But I don't hold a grudge with any of them. I don't.
I think
I've moved on.
when we can be in that place of forgiveness and not holding a grudge and still loving, but respecting boundaries. So I think it's very clear to be able to differentiate between I love somebody and I want them in my life because things have changed and we have mutual respect and mutual love. There's a difference when that love and respect is not mutual. So you can still love somebody, you can still forgive them, you can still no longer hold a grudge or anger towards them, but you also don't need them in your life.
Right.
And I
Paul,
think
go ahead, please.
the sort of conundrum that you talk about, where on the outside, on paper, a person may look fantastic or they may look terrible. But when you meet them in person and you get the context, and perhaps because we have different perspectives, we see different sides of them, you're going to walk away with a different interpretation of them versus what I'm going to walk away with. And I think that's the beauty of humanity. That's the beauty of unconditional love and unconditional truth. It's important for us, I think, as people of truth, to be able to have the courage to speak our perspective, to speak our experience with that person. I find in today's society that very few people have a tolerance to get to know people beyond what's on paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is a massive disservice. And I think that lends a lot to the canceling culture. And I think the only way out of the canceling culture is for people to have enormous courage to be able to stand up and say, this is my perspective and I'm holding to it because it's my truth.
And please tell me your perspective. I promise to just listen and not interrupt, because I don't, you know, I'm glad that you listened to me and me telling you my perspective, but I don't want to walk away not knowing yours, right?
And
So when we have these conversations with people, we think, oh my God, I can't believe they believe what they do. That gets us nothing. You know, we can vote, we can give money to candidates that we think are going to represent better our beliefs than someone else's, but where does the hate stop? You know, that's really a tough one. I've had people, and I write about it in this memoir, and I think you're really going to like the memoir. It's called A Prince of a Boy, how a fallen Catholic helped change the world and love himself. And there are a lot of characters in my book that most of my friends would think, how could you talk to that person? How could you talk to them? You know, they're our enemy, and they weren't.
again, I think it's, we get so caught up on what's on paper
Mm-hmm.
versus what is real. And I think, I have been sitting with this, even last night, I was sitting with it too. I have two examples here. I very early on in sort of reading energy, I had a wonderful opportunity to interact with a 19-year-old man who was in between juvie and prison for murdering his uncle. And on paper, you would write him off. To this day, and that was 6 years ago, to this day, he is still one of the fundamental characters that have shaped my perspective.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was just 19 and he was in the system. And for me, interacting with him and getting his side of the story and seeing his, extraordinary person, seeing his side of the story and his responsibility for it, I'm a huge cheerleader for him. I also understand that, other members of his family that are looking at the sadness and the tragedy of the uncle being murdered, they probably have very little tolerance for what I see of this gentleman. And the other side of that too is, we talk about age a lot. And I was sitting with this last night, in our society, it's far better for women to marry a man with money, regardless of age, regardless of how he behaves. It's far better to have financial security than to marry somebody younger or of a different culture where there's love.
Yeah.
And that's just a paper thing. On paper, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it's so individual, isn't it? I mean, one of the things that I find funny about myself is that ever since I was little, I thought everyone thought like I did. I did. I just, went along happily, and I thought everyone had the same amount of money, and I thought everyone had the same peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and everyone got the same Christmas stocking. I never imagined that my life was that different from anybody else's. And there's a part of me, Hayley, that likes having that feeling, even at age 75, because while I know that there people have had different, I now know because I'm woke.
You're awake and woke.
I'm woke. I know that I've had privileges other people haven't had. I also know that I've had challenges that other people haven't faced in their lives because of my sexual orientation and attitudes towards it. But still, I really do believe, and I know some people are going to get turned off by my spirituality, but I seriously believe that we're part of this evolution moving towards an awareness that we're all one, and that the people in Nigeria are our brothers and sisters, and decisions we make impact them. We may not see it, feel it, hear it, but it does. And that may be Pollyanna-ish, rose-colored glasses-ish, but I think that's where we're moving towards, and that's my life experience.
I think that's love, the acknowledgement and the truth of unconditional love. And I agree with you. I think we're moving towards that, and I think we are lucky enough to be living in a time where more and more people are starting to open up into that kind of thinking and that kind of definition of love, of success, of wealth, of abundance. I think we're getting there. I still think that I'm trying to find a good word here. Mm-hmm. I think that the majority of what we see in the media very much is the rose-colored glasses. I think what we see in the media is not a true reflection of people and of the
right.
Because I sincerely believe that the vast majority of the world wants to see love and is inclined to see love as a connection, as we're all interconnected. What I do, you do, it all means something. It's just, I think the media doesn't, and politics doesn't show that. And I think it's so warped in what's in media and politicians, it's very easy to forget that the majority of the world is actually moving towards this one love.
What's interesting, I think, the media doesn't have rose-colored glasses. They really have dark glasses because
dark glasses that are foggy and scratched.
Well, yeah, they tell us all the horrible stories because that's what we eat up. That's one of the reasons we don't receive any newspapers or magazines anymore. Journalism has totally changed.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are getting their facts through TikTok and YouTube and social media. I know there's a lot of worry that social media is not controlled sufficiently in terms of false information, but neither are newspapers. I mean, newspapers can say whatever they want to without being called out on it. And so I sort of trust the human spirit that they're going to find their own way. People take a look at kids today with their iPhones and not looking up and not having any people over because they're connected all through TikTok or FaceTime or whatever. They're going to find their way. They're going to, they're humans, and we've paved a way for them. And they're now into gadgets that we don't get. I don't, understand them. You probably do. You're much younger, but
I also have younger clients that keep me relevant with that too. And I'm
do
just like,
you? All
oh,
right. All right,
I
good.
will not be joining you on Snapchat or TikTok.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad for that. But I'm at an age where I don't care to learn it.
I just
I'm,
don't have the time for it.
huh?
I just don't have the time for it. It is an enormous drain of energy. And I do have some clients that 100% of their anxiety comes because of social media, because they're comparing themselves on social media, or they're seeing if this person liked their video or if this streak is still going. It contributes to an enormous amount of anxiety. But I think every generation has its own level of anxiety that we deal with.
Yeah, it was the same for us. I know we're different in age, but when we were in school, we had the same sort of feelings. Am I liked? People do. What do people think? I'm a nerd, or do they? So in the presence of other people, we felt that judgment. Now they're feeling it by how many likes they get, and so
Amplified.
they've created their own criteria of
Yeah.
what is popular and what is not, and am I acceptable or am I not? And I think we have to have faith
We
that
have to have faith, and I think we have to come back to the truth too, which is in all of my clients that are experiencing anxiety with social media, it's not social media. It's the way that they were raised. It's the family unit.
yeah.
And that's something that is across the ages, regardless of the generation. How you were raised and how you experienced your home environment shapes how you use these tools or how you experience the rest of your life.
And you and I were lucky to have two parents. We may have had different experiences, with our parents. I have, I've forgiven my father of a lot of stuff that, I'm sure he did his best. And my mother is like is true for most gay men. Their mother's on an altar.
I think most men, the mother is on the altar.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you don't have to be gay for that. But a lot of kids grow up without parents. They raised by their grandparents. Just because that was the culture, and their dads took off and their moms didn't want them or whatever. But they got love from that grandmother that was very intimate. So that kept them perhaps on a path, not towards financial success or,
No, it's stability.
it's towards love.
Yeah.
You have the ability to be in the world, not an angry person? Can you step out of the way of the anger that's heading towards you and say, you know what, I don't want to engage you. I'm not going to engage you. It's not healthy for me. I know I could take you on. I know that I'm faster on my feet than you are probably, but I don't care if I win an argument with you, anger or other person. I don't want to spend my time with that. It makes it hard to enjoy my dinner.
It really does. And I think at some point you have to make a choice on what you want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to this whole idea that fundamentally in this world, there are far more people that are loving than are evil. I had, my parents were not evil parents. We have our differences, but my grandparents were fundamental in showing me unconditional love and showing me love.
Yeah.
And it is because of my grandparents that I chose love, because they showed me love. And if we look at all of the stories of every single human on this planet, regardless of how beautiful or how harsh and traumatic it's been, there's always been these beacons of love that have been there for them. And some people have had one person, some people have had 15.
Right.
always being a beacon of love in every single individual's life.
Yeah, then it could be a teacher, a
Mhm.
relative, a
Just a
friend
friend.
in school, or a character in a book,
Yeah.
or a character in a movie where uh, they they woke and thought, oh, I could live my life like that.
And
I
that,
admi I admire this person. Um,
and
there are movies about grumpy men who, in the neighborhood who end up being the nicest people in the neighborhood.
but again, I think, if you look on, you go back to how we started this conversation. If we look on
Yeah,
paper, that old man, everybody just assumes is a grumpy old man, but then the one kid comes along and it ends up being this amazing mentor relationship. And I think we don't give enough time and we don't give enough credit to those beacons of love, because more often than not, they're torn down. We look for ways to tear them down and say, oh, you're not that great.
yes, absolutely right. And I think those of us who know that others have made us role models need to be very careful,
Mhm.
because uh, you're going to get knocked off your pedestal by somebody who thinks you're not so hot. No, don't think you're so hot. Um, and we've got to be able to, before that happens, say, it doesn't matter, how people respond. I'm being me. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be somebody that inspires you. I'm me. If it happens to inspire you, terrific. If it happens to turn you off, I'm sorry, I can't do anything about it. But you got to go find somebody else. And bringing us full circle, if you don't mind. I know we have plenty of time, but bringing us full circle, when there is somebody in your life, like the young man who killed his uncle, and we don't know, you didn't give any details about that, which is fine, because people don't need to know the details, right? All they need to know is that Hayley Evans has created a relationship with the young man who killed his uncle, and if she cares to share the story, but if she does, then we can start arguing about
Mhm.
points, right? Same thing with my friend, the priest, who was sent to prison for pedophilia. Uh, I can, I don't want to defend him in my book. I don't want to say the jury was crazy, that it was based on 40-year-old recovered memory and the church doling out millions. Now, see, I just did it. Yeah, I started to sneak that
Tell us how
stuff in.
you feel.
Yeah. Tell us really how you feel. But I don't need to do that in the book, because but Hayley, do you think that uh, you need to acknowledge in the book that I know there are people for whom this must be unsettling?
I think it really depends on why you're writing the book.
Well, I'm writing the book to give an honest account of my life. How did
I
I
think you
go?
need to focus on that this is your life. You're not telling it so that other people will feel comfortable with your life. You're
Yeah.
telling it as an honest account of your life. And, I think we have to be very careful about the difference between compassion and empathy. Empathy is apologizing that you are friends with somebody that somebody else may not like. Why? Why? Is that truthful? I would, let's go more towards compassion and say that I have this perspective, this relationship with this person, which I am entitled to have. You have equal entitlement to your relationship and your thoughts. Let's leave it at that.
And if you choose not to like me because of my friendship with so and so, that's
It's
really
okay.
about you, and it's okay. And if
And
you
it
walk
doesn't
away,
require an apology. Like, we don't need to
no,
apologize because I disagree with you. We just need to say, you know what, we're both right. You're entitled to that, and I allow it. I love you still. And we may not get on, but I'm
Right.
still going to see the love.
And they can say, it would make it easier for me if you didn't talk about that person, a lot to me, because it just pushes my buttons. Uh, but, I push back and say, at least in the book, I can't avoid it. I'm sorry.
It's a book about your life. It's not a book about their life. They can write their
Right.
own. And in that
Yeah,
book, they can say, I once came across Brian McNaught. I thought he was fantastic until he was friends with this person.
exactly right.
It's
And,
their
and
book. They can write it.
and there are people who feel that, and I can't do anything about it. I can't round them up and say, okay, you guys sit down, I need to explain this to you,
How
right?
can we be friends?
How can we be friends and still have this person be my friend, be in my life? um it's a check. And under what circumstances, Hayley, do we quit loving people? I mean, you mentioned people uh who don't respect your boundaries earlier, and there's a difference between not liking people's behavior but loving them.
I I try to never stop loving, regardless how scary it is, regardless how confusing it is. I always want to be loving. So even with the few people that I have very harsh boundaries where there's no human contact, I send them love every single day. I send them love
Yeah,
every single day, and I send them such heartful wishes that they're happy. And I understand that that happiness is not contingent on me being in their life and vice versa. So I
right,
always want to be in that space of love. I'm also not going to be ignorant and pretend that love means, regardless of the behavior, it's okay. Love means I see the person. Love also means that I love myself enough not to allow certain behaviors in my world. And the behavior is the critical point there. I may not love the behavior, but I still love the person.
right. And it's so, and sometimes we have to explain that to the person.
Mhm.
I
If
don't,
you're willing to listen.
if they're willing to listen. That's exactly right. uh I had a nephew uh who wanted me to come and celebrate his marriage to a woman, but he was gay. And I said, no, I'm not coming to this wedding because it's a farce.
Mhm.
And uh, and I have the right to say no. I still love you. I hope you're happy, but I'm not going to come and
Pretend.
pretend that because I think when you go to a wedding, basically you're saying we're there to support you and affirm your love, right?
I agree
Uh,
with your decision. I'm on board with this. I think this is the best thing for you.
Yeah, and I'll be here to support you guys if you need it. Often people separate without ever reaching out to the people who are at their wedding to, ask for help, which is, their business. But you can love people and make decisions that you're not going to participate in their charade, or what you consider their charade.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I think, that's where it's important to be in love and recognize that if you're choosing love, you have to love yourself first. You have to authentically love yourself and be the example of authentic love. So if you're going in and saying, I love this way and I'm authentic in this way, but in this way, it's not such a big deal, you're blurring the lines of love. You're confusing it.
so if we can, shifting a little bit about loving yourself. uh I I've been experiencing some depression that about my sister's death and Lincoln's death, our dog, and uh, some. It I feel like my life was really great when I had them both, and they've both been taken away from me, and I'm having trouble getting my footing. I mean, I function, I can have great conversations with you. I can write a book, but I've got this general malaise,
A
you know.
wobble.
Yeah, and have you experienced that in your life?
I've honestly experienced it in a different way this year. I haven't had the same experience with you in terms of such confronting death, but I have felt a lot this year where I've just been like, not entirely sure I know what's going on.
Uh-huh.
And it was just sort of in the last 2 weeks that the word faith has been so loud and so obvious. And every time I've sort of sat with the word faith and kind of allowed myself to wobble into faith and let faith hold me, I feel better. I feel more myself. So I think as we're moving into this place of one love, it is cyclical, it's up and down. And I think we all kind of move in shifts, and there's a lot of things that influence those shifts. But I think for many of us in our different ways, we're really being pushed gently, but also at the same time firmly into trust your faith.
Tell me more about your faith. When you say faith, was that faith in you or faith in your relationship to some higher power?
It's faith in me ultimately. It's faith in knowing that I'm going to be okay. It's faith in knowing that I will be aware of the right time to make the right decision. It's faith that, I am guided, whether that is by a greater sense or by my higher self. It's faith that I'm guided to be in my highest and best. It's faith in that I have the ability to open my heart and be open to the energetic information that says, stay, now move. This is where you're going. So it's that kind of faith, but ultimately, it's the faith that I'm going to be okay.
When we first met, and our friend Mike Charney arranged for our half-hour conversation, you said that my guide was St. Francis of Assisi. And I write that in my book because you were one more person in my life who startled me with an awareness of my path. I've had these things my whole life of individuals who have said things that were consistent with the message I got all along. So I know that if you mention Francis of Assisi as the spirit guide, you do believe in outside influence in people's lives.
I believe in outside influence. A bit complicated.
Well, explain it, because it is complicated, Hayley, because I think there are going to be people who find my book too religious.
I think we don't fully comprehend. We underestimate how intelligent our soul is, and how our soul is God energy, and how much love is there, and the different frequencies of the love. And let's use St. Francis of Assisi as a wonderful example here. When I align with that energy, it feels like a person. It feels like an historical figure, like he actually walked the earth. Mm-hmm. But I think when we talk about these outside influences, what I know at this point in time is that our soul carries that frequency. And in order to communicate with us, it gives us the frequency of St. Francis of Assisi so that we can connect with it. And now we're open to that frequency, and we're open to that teaching that comes with that frequency. So to put it another way, when St. Francis of Assisi walked to the earth, he had a very specific frequency. He had a very specific purpose that had a very specific frequency of love. And it was that frequency that allowed him to communicate with different types of people and to be able to teach love. That frequency is still very much alive today. And for many of us, that frequency looks and feels like St. Francis of Assisi.
Hayley, you and I both use the term frequency, but let's talk a bit about what that word means for people who might be listening and think, I'm not on the same page. You know, a couple of people reading my book, I talk about going to the omega point, you know, that we're working towards omega. And they said, listen, people are not going to understand what you mean by that. You know, it's a term that a small group of people, you know, use to represent the end, you know, of the love. But frequency, I love the word frequency because I know that I know when I'm not at the frequency that I want to be. You know, I know that and depression can bring you down. Sadness can bring you down. But what you're really hoping for is that awareness, you know, the highest frequency awareness, that you see the big picture. You know, like a bird, you're up and looking down and you're seeing everything and how we all relate and how we're all connected, and you're vibrating at that level. Francis of Assisi, in order to suddenly, out of what, you know, give all of his fancy clothes back to his father, throw on a robe and go into a cave, you know, that was a frequency
Of
where
faith.
of faith and love, you know, and love of something higher than he was. And what do we call that? And that's when people get turned off. You know, you use the word God and people get turned off by that. You use the word universe and people who use God get turned off because they want to say God. I keep changing the word because I want everyone to feel, you know, that I'm with them and that we're talking the same thing, whether it's God, love, universe, or spirit. You know, they're all representing, for me, the influence of goodness beyond me, right? And through me. Things that I'm not capable of coming up with myself, you know, I'm keeping the window clean so the light can shine through, but I'm not the light.
I think a couple things there. First off, humility. We need to be humble enough to realize that we're not here to get on with everybody else and to be able to link everybody together. We're just here to have our experience. And as we go up in frequency, we tend to kind of hover with the people that are at that same frequency and speak the same language. That being said, let's not be snobs and be like, I'm at this frequency, so I don't speak to these people.
Right.
What I do for me, and it's you know, I need to use it for my work, is I always ask people what language they're comfortable with, and then I can speak their language. So if they're not if they're Jewish, I'm not going to talk to them about Allah. You know, I'm going to speak to them in more Kabbalistic, more Jewish language that will help them to kind of resonate better with whatever message is coming through. For me, the frequency, and I think an easy way of explaining it, I think, is looking at a volume dial. Frequency is love. Love. So when we look at the volume dial on a radio or a speaker, and it say it goes 1 to 20, yeah? 20 is unconditional love. 1 is potentially hate. Hate is still love. It's just that at that frequency, that's how much love you're letting in.
Yeah, and it's also that it also reflects how much love you have for yourself.
It's
you know, hate
that much.
Hate is a manifestation of not loving yourself.
Yeah. So the more that you turn up the dial, it just means the more that you're opening up to receive the frequency of love.
Yeah.
So a person that is all the way closer to 20, their heart is open and they have the courage to just feel and have faith that everything that they feel is love and to accept it as love.
And be aware that they're not going to stay at 20. all the
Mm-mm.
time. That,
No,
that, no, that's that when if they're at 20 all the time, then they're in nirvana, then,
you're probably
you
going
know,
to be dead.
yeah, they're probably going to be dead, or they can handle it for a while, but then, the ego gets involved, or
It gets loud
judge
when you switch it down again.
judgment gets involved. As soon as judgment comes in, the dial goes down. And
And it doesn't necessarily go from 20 to 1. It might just go from 20 to 18. But
right,
it's still like you have to turn the volume down a little bit to be able to be like, okay, let me figure this out. Okay, full back on, I've sorted it out.
right, yeah.
But again, that, is the sort of cyclical, wavy nature of human life, which is ultimately you want to go from a 1 to a 20 in a lifetime. But you're never going to stay at 1 and you're never going to stay at 20. You're going to sometimes be at 5. And then next week you might be at a 3. And then you might go from 3 to a 6. We hope that the momentum is always upward, but it's never a straight line.
Where would you say you are most likely to be found? At what level between 0 and 20? Honestly, without worrying about humility.
If I say that 20 is unconditional love, I'm maybe at like a 14. Like I still have a strong judgment in me.
Yeah, judgment,
I
isn't it a
still,
thing?
and judgment and doubt are the same for me. Whenever you're doubting, you're judging, and vice
Yeah.
versa. So that for me is still very strong. And I think we were talking about sort of this malaise, depression of the year, and having to remind myself of faith and to choose faith. That tells me that I'm still at like a 14, 15, because I have to consciously say, where is your faith?
In AA, they talk about that you are more susceptible to drink when you're tired, you're hungry,
Be angry, lonely, tired.
angry. And we need to be aware that that also impacts the dial.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hungry, you're not really thinking about your relationship with the hibiscus outside the window. Right? You're hungry, or you're angry, so that turns the dial down, because you've let go of a trust, and so that you have to work yourself back up. I mean, every morning Ray and I say, I'm going to work today to be the person I aspire to be. And then sometimes I have to ask myself, okay, what does that look like? Who is the person? And so last night, by example, I had made this pot pie, and it was, I get up every morning, I make the bed, then I come out and I make breakfast, and then I make dinner. So it's ready, and when we're ready, it's ready. I've got a pot of ratatouille right now on the stove.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it smells delicious too. But Ray didn't eat, half of his dinner last night, and I got upset, thinking I worked so damn hard each morning to do this, and I have to go to the grocery store. I lost it, I didn't say any. I mean, I didn't take him on, but he knew I was upset. And he sat down. I said, I'm really sorry. That was bullying you to eat something you didn't want to eat. Let's talk about it. I miss the hell out of Lincoln, and I'm depressed about that. We just watched an upsetting show on television that my nerves are racked by. Uh, I'm I am tired of cooking, and that's okay to say. I think everybody at some age gets tired of cooking, but you keep doing it because or you buy frozen and prepared food. But as soon as I was able to say, I take responsibility for what happened. It's not your fault. You should not have to eat stuff, that's past your level of comfort. And I'm getting better at owning my stuff real quickly.
Yeah. And I think when we talk about love, that's moving more into the unconditional love for yourself.
Yeah.
And again, let's not underestimate the amount of courage it takes to be able to own your stuff and more and more quickly say something about it.
Yeah. And I'm really glad about that. I'm glad that I'm at this point. And Ray is at the point too, Hayley, where he didn't, I mean, he's super sensitive. So I have to watch sometimes how I say things. But he's also not quick to now. He's not quick to defend. He sat there smiling and listening and said, it's fine. It's fine. So I'm glad that he's at where he's at. He can sit and listen to me, understand, and affirm without having, a disagreement that I'm wrong, feeling what I'm feeling.
And I
He
think
says, go ahead.
when we talk about frequency and love, when you are at a certain frequency, the relationships around you match that frequency, they resonate. So you can have these kind of conversations where you're both growing and you're both open to better communication of love.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I could feel the way I feel, Hayley, if I wasn't the age that I am.
Such a good question, such a good topic. It's, you and I could probably go on a tangent about trying to figure out age and old soul, new soul, young soul.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying a very interesting relationship right now with somebody that's younger than me. And I'm just like, it floors me how mature they are. And I literally have the same thing where I'm like, okay, I'm at this age and I have a level of maturity and a level of wisdom. How is this person able to hold conversations with me? And it's fascinating, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, so it's not age. Is it the old soul thing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how does the old soul thing sort of manifest?
How does it? Where does it come from? And as we said earlier, maybe this young person had terrific grandparents or terrific parents or terrific teacher.
Yeah.
And was led to read books that put them beyond an awareness that their age usually reflected. I so often hear from people my age, a bemoaning of aches and pains and worry. One of my dear friends was on the phone with me yesterday, and she had had a horrible toothache, and she was noticing one thing after the other. And I said, look, two things. First, worry is a waste of time and energy. It's not going to. Second, you're old. You're old. Look, your body's breaking down. It's going to happen. So you have to decide, am I going to focus on that? Or am I going to focus on the fact that I love where I'm at? And, when I finish this memoir, I don't know what I'm going to do. It feels like the last thing you write is your memoir, but maybe I'll get into fiction. Maybe I'll keep writing. And
I think you have to finish before you can start. Like, we can't invent the endings.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
Maybe then you'll have a new puppy that you just don't have time to write.
That's right. That's right.
Because you're going to be picking up a lot around the house.
We are trying, I'll tell you, a friend gave me this stuffed dog that looked like Lincoln, and the hair on it was like Lincoln. And for several weeks, I would touch it as I read Lincoln's first book and then his second book in an effort to sort of work through my grief. And a friend brought over his doodle. He had a labradoodle or a golden doodle, and he and the dog grabbed that stuffed dog. And my friend said, "Is that all right?" And I said, "It is now. It's okay." Well, he had the stuffing pulled out of that dog before he left the house. We were picking up cotton all over the house, stuffing it back in. And he said, "Keep it for my next visit." But we loved having his dog around because it reminded us of Lincoln and the joy we experienced with Lincoln. But that dog, good thing you don't cling. When you cling, you suffer. If I had made that thing sacred and, oh no, you can't touch that. All the toys behind us, they're antique. And a young nephew was told, "Don't touch the toys." And he said, "Well, why are they toys if you can't play with them?"
Good point.
It is a great point. Why do you call them toys?
Why do you have them if you can't use them?
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think, I know we only have 5 minutes, but I think that's a wonderful metaphor for life. Only have the things that you need.
Right. And only have the things that you need. Yeah, you're better than I am on that, but I'm much better than I used to be. I could, you talk about being able to carry 2 suitcases. I'd have 2 moving vans for me. Now I could do it with 1 moving van, maybe, or Ray and I might even be able to do it ourselves, but I doubt it. But if I can go full circle, I know we only have a couple of minutes, back to using the things in life or having the things in life that you use. And for me, Paul, my friend, is somebody who I used, not against his will. And I don't want to deny it. I don't want to say he wasn't an important part of life.
Whether we like it or not, we are of service and in service. So everything in this human life serves us in one way or another, and we serve. It's the give and take. And I think it's having the love and the compassion to fully appreciate that which still serves you, and having the love and compassion to let go of that which no longer serves you. And if it's still serving you, have the courage to appreciate it out loud.
And yes, and if you want to know, the book is about how did you get to where you are now? I mean, what were the steps? How did you get to this point of self-love and confidence? And
this was
when you were
person, I think he deserves a place in the book, and I would be happy to read your story with him.
Oh, you're going to, even if I'll send it to you so you can read it without having to buy it. But I think you're going to like it a lot.
I'm very much looking forward to it.
And Hayley, I'm pretty close to the point where I could send it to you, but a lot of friends say, "I never knew that about you."
And I think this is the scary thing about writing. This is why people leave it for the last minute, not only because you need the life experience, but because you can be like, and I'm checking out now.
Yeah, no, listen, I don't, I put everything in the book I can think of, and I'm not embarrassed by any of it. So it's me. And it's been a fascinating experience of writing it, because I do have a bird's eye view of me and how I went from, terrible self-consciousness about acceptability to wonderful self-confidence about not caring whether or not I'm liked. And that's a fascinating process.
And I think that's part of giving back, being in service, is that somebody, one person, whether it's one person or 100 people, are going to be able to resonate with that and be able to move for themselves more in that direction of the self-love, self-compassion, confidence.
Yeah, the feedback I get is that, Brian, you put into words what I'm thinking, but I haven't been able to put into words. And, I know that I'm not a upper level author, where people will revere the book. But I think I communicate with the masses pretty well. And
you communicate with your people.
Yeah, my people.
In your world.
And and you're in my world. So
absolutely, you're in my world too, and I'm grateful.
Me too.
For here with me. And enjoy the rest of the week with your book. And I look forward to reading the final ending.
And you'll have it before we talk next.
Oh, really? Is that quick?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. You may find some typos. I have people reading and letting me know what they find, but it's not going to stop you from enjoying the story.
Oh, how fantastic.
Yeah.
It'll be my little rehab. I'll take that book and just read it and be my little retreat weekend.
Yeah, it'll be, electronic. It'll be, an attachment, a Word document, but I think you're going to like it. And if you happen to know any publishers, if you happen to know any agents or publishers, do let me know.
Not yet, but word is out.
Yeah, you need to have your, no, forget it. You can't tell people they need to do something, but it would be fun to read your book if you wrote one.
I don't know about that. Let's just baby steps.
Well, that's it. All right.
Lots of love to you, and we'll speak soon. And I look forward to the book.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you too in a couple of weeks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.